Hello, and welcome to the very latest episode of the Give My Head podcast. I nearly forgot what I was going to say there. I've been laughed at by the producer. It's the Give My Head podcast. It's been a long day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tim McGarry, and I'm joined by my comedy colleagues
Michael McDowell. Damon Quinn.
You know the show, we interview all sorts of people. We have politicians, we have comedians, we have actors, we have sports people, and we are really enjoying it. I think we've done over a year so far, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, we're enjoying ourselves so much, we're doing a live show. We are in the Mandela Hall on Sunday the 12th of October with a live Give My Head podcast. We'll have some special guests from the cast of Give My Head piece. I can tell you that Olivia Nash, Ma, is going to be there. Ali Ford Dimpna is going to be there. There'll be a bit of stand-up, and we have two other very special guests. We have Mr. Shane Todd and Mr. Willie Thompson, who will be on stage with us. So come for a bit of night's crack, bit of stand-up, some readings from Give My Head piece, Q&A, bit of crack. So get your tickets now for the Give My Head podcast live on the Sunday the 12th of October in the Mandela Hall. And I promise you, our guest today, ladies and gentlemen, we have had some sports superstars on this show, absolute sporting legends. We have a sporting legend, and I'm going to put aside my Cliftonville hat and welcome Mr. David Healy. Hi, sir. Welcome.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much.
A little bit nervous, Tim.
Don't be nervous. It's all right. It's okay. We'll not mention Cliftonville or Linfield too much. Well, we will, because I was watching a document.
No, we will.
We will. There can't be many people in Northern Ireland who don't know who you are, but if there's some people who go, "Who's that fella there in the beard?" He is football legend, Leeds United legend, Northern Ireland legend, though, particularly for a goal that you scored against England in 2005, exactly 20 years ago. We documentary on, as you can see on the BBC iPlayer, which is Healy 1, England 0.
I haven't taped, and I'm going to watch it today.
Okay.
You can't just watch an iPlayer then.
Damon doesn't really do football, by the way, just in case you didn't know. And I remember it very well.
We all remember it.
Oh, Jesus.
Even I remember it, and I don't do
We
football.
took the piss out of it and Give Me a Head piece.
We did. We famously parried it and Give Me a Head piece where Dad and Carl are wearing England tops because they want Northern Ireland to lose. So they're wearing an England top, and they're bitterly disappointed when they go to the match because they're expecting the inevitable result, and it doesn't happen. Yeah. But they were scundered, weren't they?
We scundered them.
They were scundered.
A good Irish. They were humbled. They were beat. The superstars. I think they were the golden generation at the time. They were humbled, kicked out of Windsor. Beckham, Ferdinand, Rooney, Gerrard. They had them all playing. So for us to even get close to them that night was incredible. I watched the documentary. Obviously, you're going to watch it. You're again, a wee bit humbling doing it. You know, somebody from Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland hadn't even scored a goal against England.
There was
about 70 odd years we hadn't beaten England.
But even before Laurie Sanchez arrived, the early documentary said they hadn't scored 13 matches without scoring a goal.
I think I played every minute of that.
Did you play all of those? That was under Sammy McElroy.
That was under Sammy.
God love him.
This was 2005, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah. Laurie Sanchez.
Yeah. I mean, how did you feel when you knocked that one in?
Again, for any Irish person, Northern Irish person, England just have this persona of, we'll call it charisma, arrogance, where they were going to turn up and they were going to beat us. Entitlement. Yeah, and there's probably more.
Yeah.
Just on the day leading into the game, I can remember watching the news outlets and the England fans. There was some mad Northern Ireland supporter on the documentary last night. 1-0, all the Roonies in the world wouldn't beat Northern Ireland.
Yes.
So the England fans were in the round Robinsons, they were in the round all the bars in Belfast, and they were getting a wee bit leery and a wee bit 5-0, 6-0, 4-0. And I remember the boy sitting down for pre-match and he says, "Did you hear the England fans?" Not that it mattered about the result of the game, we still had to go and perform, but there was an air of probably, we were going to lose that night, but the performance, the atmosphere, everything on the ground that night was incredible. The stars were aligned. I scored, England were beat, and from then on, I think I said in the documentary again, my life basically changed after that.
Wow.
Healy.
Tortured Christmas carols.
Away in a manger.
All the things I managed to switch the Christmas lights on in Belfast with Bob the Builder, who was way more popular than I was. Callum Best and I think it was Liz McLaurin.
Callum Best.
Me, Callum Best. Callum was steaming. So I don't think he can remember switching the lights on. But it was between the three of us, and then I Bob the Builder, because there was that many kids there. He got the biggest reception.
But did it feel real when you put it in there? Did it feel real at the time?
Not really. Again, you get that sort of sicky adrenaline feeling where I'd grown up my whole life wanting to score a goal at Windsor Park. I'd already accomplished that and achieved that. But to score the winner against England, albeit 74 minutes, you sort of think England might come back and it might not, be the winner. Yeah. There was still enough time with the quality that England had. But, fortunately, as I said, that goal that night changed. I hope it helped. I hope it helped along the way with, the Northern Ireland team and future generations to go and qualify for the Euros.
But they could do that. Well, that and the Spain match where you scored a hat-trick against Spain was one of those ones you go, wow, this is a team that can actually do something.
We were actually always a good team, even in the minutes and the hours and the games that we, Sammy McElroy was the manager. For whatever reason, we had so many big names. Your Magilton, Lomas, Lennons, Gillespies.
But I remember my wee lad was about 6, I think, when that happened, and overnight he was a Northern Ireland fan. He wanted Northern Ireland to win everything. Well,
there you go. Well, if we can get if we could have got young kids, because the IFA were on their knees at the time. And again, Jim Boyce, who you would know. And again, Jim, I still speak to Jim to this day, and he always remembers fondly. He remembers a lot of the Cliftonville stuff fondly, but that night in particular, because he had a big hand in playing and bringing Laurie to the job. Jimmy Nicholl was going to get it, then Laurie got it, and Laurie was always cut out for. He scored the FA Cup
for Wimbledon
against Liverpool. So he was always, and he had that persona about him.
And he was IFA, so he was cheaper.
He was typical.
He did something. He give you belief.
He did. He sat us all down and he put these percentages together about if you put the ball into these sort of areas. The likelihood is that we're going to create more chances. We're going to score that goal that we hadn't scored in 1,300 minutes. And then after you get the first goal, you get the first win, then all of a sudden a wee bit more belief sort of creeps in, and then all of a sudden, you're playing England. You're not expected to beat them. There's no pressure on us. The pressure was on the England team, and they were scundered.
Nice clips of
scundered. It was a brilliant word.
Gary Lineker was on.
We put manners on.
Gary Lineker was on beforehand with Ian Wright and stuff, and said, "Can't say anything but an England win." No, couldn't say anything but an England win.
We had Ian Dowie on there fighting our cause.
Ian Dowie said, "Well, we might get a draw."
I think even then, when you do the studio, I've done the studio. Northern Ireland play the big teams. You never ever want to say, "I don't fancy Northern Ireland here," because you don't want to look as if you're a little bit sceptical.
I did a gig for Carrickfergus Golf Club. They did a sporting dinner, done one with Keith Gillespie and stuff, and I did one with Steve Davis, the snooker player. Steve Davis.
Boring.
Well, Steve, when he's into music and stuff, a very weird character. But anyway, he did a speech and stuff like that, and then he had a Q&A, and somebody stuck up their hand and said, "Steve, how did you feel when you lobbed the ball over to David Healy to score the winning?" I went, what? I go, "Oh, sorry, different Steve Davis." That was a good joke. He took it well eventually, but
by all accounts, he's pretty. What did you say? What's he called? Boring.
He's
but I think he's got a wee bit of charisma.
No, he hasn't.
Bit like yourself, Tim.
What? Let's not get hysterical. So Northern Ireland legend. You played with the Keith Gillespie.
Yeah.
Keith, I did a gig with Keith. I like my favourite Keith Gillespie story. Read his autobiography came out.
Yeah.
And I said to Keith, "Listen, people told me it was brilliant." And I said, "Keith, I'm really sorry. I haven't read your autobiography. I hear it's brilliant." He said, "But I'm sorry, I haven't read it." He said, "Don't worry, neither have I." I said, "Keith, come on."
As long as you're getting paid for it, that's all it matters.
I said, "Keith, they must have at least had a read of it, when they, it was ghost written." He said, No, I knew what they were going to say and what they were going to ask me about in the interviews, which is basically gambling and sex.
And there's probably a few other stories not in there.
I'm sure.
So he's probably kept his head down a wee bit.
Was he fun? He's fun on the tour.
Keith was a brilliant, and again, Keith came through the ranks at Man United. So again, I was along the sort of same path, young lad. Yeah. He was part of the.
You started at Man United.
I started at Man United. So again, 16.
Right.
So Keith again, he was part of the infamous. Talked about the Beckham era, the class of '92. Yeah. He was never in the pictures that all lemons were. The gigs, schools, but Beckham and whatever else. But Keith actually played in that team. So again, for a young aspiring footballer from Northern Ireland, he was one that I actually looked to.
Yeah.
I think he was quite a few years older than me when I came into the international setup, and we bonded. Sort of, we enjoyed the odd sort of drink together and whatever else together as a team and a squad. But Keith was always, no matter what Keith drunk, no matter when he drunk, he was always the freshest in the morning. You turned up and the boys were watching your head of time for
Which is
for
a
breakfast.
skill in itself.
It is a skill in itself.
It is a skill in itself.
And he perfected that over many years. And
Yes.
even to this day, even now, he still looks as if he could probably still sort of play probably 90 minutes. Because
Yes, a very entertaining man.
So, yeah, he's a few stories, no doubt.
And after the England thing, you then went on to score 3 against Spain. Came back from behind and 3 goals against Spain. Well,
You said he didn't know anything about football.
Oh no, he's just
I just
Googled
told
that
him
on the
I just
table.
told him that.
I have a very good researcher. So, but what was going on that night? Like,
That was another
Football.
night.
Football was going on.
That was a night we had been humbled 3-0 on the Saturday against Iceland, who were probably in and around where we were at the time, but we were humbled. Eidur Johnson was playing; he absolutely destroyed us. So 4 days later, Wednesday, you have Spain coming to town, and the fear was running through the squad. You're sort of thinking we've absolutely no chance. They had absolutely world-class players all over the pitch. Aragonis was their manager, and they were probably big favourites maybe to go on, and progress, which they did. They didn't win the Euros that year, but I think they won the World Cup Euros within the space of sort of 6 years after that.
Yeah, they were fantastic.
Raul, the great Raul from Real Madrid, was playing that night, and it was actually his last ever game for Spain.
Wow.
So I have those who know and those in the know have mentioned to me before, I had the great privilege and pleasure of retiring the great Raul from Madrid.
Wow. With a hat-trick.
Champions League record goal scorer, an absolute idol at the Bernabeu in Madrid, and he retired after that night. So brilliant night, coming from behind twice. I think Sabi scored again, another decent footballer.
Legend.
Another decent footballer.
But what were you in the zone that night? Like, I mean, was it just
In the
did you
zone,
feel
I was
you
in the
could-
zone after. I was in Thompson's about 4 in the morning. The fella and all over, and the Thompson's was open. I know Marcus Rashford got bad press for being in Thompson's last year. I think we were in the Thompson's about 4 in the morning. And I always remember getting back to the hotel. We went back to the clubs after, and it was a night Laurie had sort of threatened to resign. He threw his big jacket, this big puffer jacket into the Northern Ireland crowd, and it looked as if he was potentially going to resign because he was fed up with some of the negativity come from the press. And maybe I finished him off because I was sat with a father-in-law and a couple of other players about 6 o'clock in the morning in the foyer at Temple Patrick Hotel. We had about 24 Red Bulls and 6 vodkas, and he's probably sort of thinking, what's going on here? I've had enough. But he ended up, he stayed for another bit longer.
Yeah.
So did you feel like you could have scored more than 3 that night?
A few more Red Bull, maybe. Maybe you should have took a Red Bull maybe before the game. I was an unbelievable night again. Beating England 1-0.
But they were top quality goals too. Like they weren't.
They were
top
the first one
engines.
was a wee push.
Well.
I think if anybody remember, it was a wee slight push. But the last one,
Yeah.
it was a bomb down the pitch by Meg Taylor. Salgado sort of misread where it was going. I think the old Northern Ireland balls sort of moved in the wind and it landed to my, and all I had to do was lob it over Casillas, the great Casillas, Real Madrid goalkeeper.
Have you been to Spain many times since?
Been there a few times, but nobody
You
ever
get recognised?
Absolutely not. I think even when we went back to play them for the that was the first round of fixtures we played them. We actually played them. I think it was the last game of the campaign. We played them in Las Palmas.
You did, that's right. Yeah.
And it was an opportunity. I think Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland fans had started then travelling in big numbers.
Yeah.
But I think the Las Palmas, I think if Northern Ireland had 8,000-9,000 they were trying to get because of the destination. They seen it as a holiday, and we were going out. But we lost 1-0, which ended the campaign in defeat. But
But the Spanish do. I mean, a lot of countries do, I'm sure, but the Spanish do take their football very, very personally.
very passionate. Oh, aye.
They're very they're really serious about it.
They are.
So,
We were maybe expecting a wee bit of sort of publicity because again after that Spain didn't lose for I can't even remember the last time Spain lost after we had sort of beat them. So there was probably sent shockwaves through the...
Because they're still embarrassed about 1982 when Northern Ireland beat them in the World Cup.
Absolutely, and that was part of probably the build-up.
Yeah, they must have a phobia about Northern Ireland.
They probably got me
every time they go out to play Northern Ireland now, they're probably thinking, "Oh Christ, it's going to happen again."
They probably got myself for Big Jerry on a dartboard, probably throwing darts to say, "Not these. This isn't going to happen again."
Man, you were 16 at Man United.
16,
right? And we had David Jeffrey on here, Man United.
that's right. He was Liverpool.
Yeah. And the kids were taking over and kind of. But you got one game for Man United? Did you?
I played. It was one Premier League game.
One Premier League
game. There was a couple of cup games. I don't even know what it's called now. It was a Rumbelows Cup or the Carling Cup, and it changes that sort of. It's a Carabao Cup at the minute.
Yeah,
so it was one of them cups. But you go over, you're 16. Yeah. I had been to trial to two clubs, Rangers and Man United, and again, there's probably a wee bit of a story to. I signed for Man United. My dad's a big pigeon man.
Right.
And I know he has been for 50 plus years. Right. And I think it's a lot of people in Northern Ireland raise pigeons, keep pigeons, rear pigeons, rear the young ones as he calls them. Now the Man United scout at the time, Eddie Coulter, was a pigeon man. And the Rangers scout, Joe Kincaid, was desperate to get me to sign for Rangers. Now, I think my dad forced me down the route of signing for Man United because him and Eddie had this
Had a pigeon?
Had a pigeon they had a pigeon swap going on. And they were maybe roaring for each other for the young birds coming up.
It could have changed dramatically.
It could have changed. It could have went to Rangers. But at 15, but probably the sales or the swaps of a couple of pigeons.
Man originally.
Killay man, yes. Yeah. You would know there's a flag. I think there's Killay Reds.
Yes.
At Solitude, and again, you probably hear. I would like the guy who stands. He probably stands near where you stand, Tim.
Right.
Underneath. Every time I'm there before the game, the warm up, coming back in from the warm up, half time at the end of the game, and he stands and he does this big. And I'm sort of thinking, right, and after the first initial part, I was sort of thinking, what's he on about? And then he started to shout it down. Obviously, my dad's a pigeon man. He had an unfortunate incident a number of years ago where the shade was set on fire, etc., and whatever else, and some of his pigeons were damaged, hurt, killed. And this guy's either from Killelay, knows somebody from Killelay, and he stands every single game I'm there. Now,
with the sensitivity of a football fan,
yeah, of course. But he does all this here, and I would like to remember he does all this. Wow, how's your dad's pigeons? And I'm sort of thinking, mate, seriously, he doesn't own seagulls, and he doesn't own crows. Yeah, cool. He does a wee bit of
same, is it?
No, I seen him last week when I was up, and he's always a wee bit more quieter when I'm not there with Linfield. And I sort of tap him on how you the day you're a bit quieter of the day. But every time he sees me on the pitch and the warm up coming in from the warm up, the dugout.
How many years has he been doing this?
For about 9. And he does it. So we play at Solitude again when Cliftonville make it into the top 6.
Oh,
we're normally up there at least.
Oh, you take your time, but
we're normally up there at least twice a season. So twice a season normally. So that's about 18, 20 times. So if he does watch your show and he does listen, tell him. My dad doesn't own seagulls or crows.
Right, okay. I will have a word. I will have a word with the Killelay Reds.
The Killelay, all two of them. All two of them. Yeah. I think there's 2 of them.
So you played for Leeds then, didn't you? Mm-hmm. That was your team, wasn't it?
Yes, still is my team.
Then you played for Sunderland, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
There's a certain irony in that, isn't there? Because did Sunderland not famously beat Leeds in the 1973
yes, it did.
FA Cup?
Yes, it did.
1973.
I know
30 years, but clearly
that was near enough in around the time Cliftonville won the Irish Cup before they beat us. So 1973, absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
And I had the pleasure at Sunderland to work with Roy Keane.
Yes.
Roy was again a young player that we knew from United. Took control of the match day tickets at Man United, where when you're a younger player in the squad, you always had to go to the skipper. Nowadays, at Linfield, maybe Gary Eccles, a kit man or somebody else, protects the tickets and hands out. But when you're a young lad, you had to go and ask Roy for the tickets. And you used to be cacking your pants, sort of thinking, what kind of mood's Roy in? But I got to know Roy as a younger player. I was almost a test at United at times. We had Eric Harrison, a great youth coach, who Sir Alex always recommended so highly because he brought so many of the younger kids through. Eric actually used it. Everything was a test at Man United of character, mentality, toughness. And when the first team were potentially beat on a Tuesday night or a Saturday, he used to send you with a ball or a shirt. They asked the first team players to sort of sign that. And you used to be standing there and you used to be thinking, what's Big Smegel going to be like here? What's Roy going to be like? And some of the first teams are coming in that can be ballers. What you get, they're in, they want to train, they want to get changed and want to get out on the, to make things right maybe after a defeat. But Roy was always the hardest. He used to come in with a thick beard. And again now, the joke was always when Roy's beard got thicker than normal, that it probably meant that he was a wee bit more angry than normal. And sometimes I watch, and I think Roy's lost at the game in terms of what he has as, coach managerial skills that he has possesses. Because when you see him, but he's not lost to the general sort of public because he's out there and anybody that switches on Super Sunday or when Roy's doing the game, when Man United are playing or something's happening, he's straight to the point, and all of a sudden you're sort of sat in your seat and everybody's sort of listening to see what he has to say. But going back to Roy, I had an incredible relationship with Roy. I actually take pride in it because I don't think Roy sort of took too fondly to too many footballers. He signed me for Sunderland, he left, he got sacked, he went to Ipswich. I can always remember the phone ringing. Was coming in around transfer deadline day, and everybody had Roy's number from Sunderland, but it was always withheld. And I seen this withheld number coming up 2 days before the deadline, and I was thinking, I wonder who that is. So I picked it up, and it was Roy ringing me. I was at Sunderland, he was at Ipswich, and he turned around and he says, "I've spoken to Steve Bruce. They've okayed me to take you on loan." I was like, I live in Newcastle. Ipswich is 6.5 hours away. My kids had just started school at the time. I was thinking, I don't think it's going to go down too well with, indoors, sort of thinking what's going on here. And I said to Roy, sure you didn't play me that much at Sunderland? He says, don't worry, this is the Championship, Premiership, you didn't play, Championship will bring you down. Play. I said, I still don't know, Roy. He says, I'm going to give you 2 hours. Give me a call back. I called him back. I spoke to the wife, the kids, and I rang him back within about 5 minutes and says, "Roy, I'll see you in the morning." Oh. So at the time I was thinking it wasn't, but I couldn't say no to Roy. So I'm probably one of the very few players that Roy has signed for 2 clubs. Roy's managed Sunderland and he's managed Ipswich, and I played for both clubs. And he signed me twice.
He's probably a lovely man, is he?
He is. Again,
I mean, there's a persona.
He's straight to the point. Again, as a manager, there's times in the dressing room as a player, you're basically ducking for cover. If it's for somebody else, you used to get on the bus after and you used to, footballers like sniggering at somebody else's demise or somebody else having to go, as long as it's not you. But if it's you and it becomes a wee bit more personal, you're a wee bit more on the back foot. And Roy could put people on the back foot. He used to say to me, he said to me one night in his strong Cork accent, "You need to start running about like a madman like you do for the North." And I goes, "Yes, Roy, I get that, I'm trying." And he says, "How are we going to do this?" He says, "What about putting what about wearing your Northern Ireland shirt under the Sunderland shirt?" I didn't have the best time at Sunderland, and Roy was trying to come up with ideas of how I could score for Sunderland at the time. And he says, "Well, you run about like a madman for the North. Try and run about like a madman for me, please, would you?" So, but we got on well with everything left. And
he doesn't suffer. I mean, footballers today seem to be pampered and around. I mean, he doesn't like all that.
No, he doesn't like.
Get on with a fucking game. You're not here to play football.
Straight to the point. And again, in my personal opinion, I think he's lost in the game in terms of what he can offer as a coach and a manager. I think I did recently see that he had mentioned about put him into the Man United dressing room, he'll soon sort them out. I don't know, he's never been given the opportunity. I would imagine there's quite a few in the Man United dressing room who's been outspoken.
I'm sure.
Aftermath, they're probably thinking, please do not give this to Roy, because there's a shake-up and then there's a shake-up, but Roy had that, as you say, straight to the point.
Did you always want to be a striker?
Always. As a younger player, I grew up, I practiced. I probably practiced more in a game where we lived in Kildare, apart from the first house where my dad had this big 40-foot pigeon shed in the back garden where you basically couldn't play. We moved to a second house, albeit small sort of garden, but we had this sort of wee park out the back, and there was a wall that I could practice on. It was painted. It was actually painted with the goal on,
Right.
and I sort of practiced with my left foot, my right foot, basically for hours. And when I look at younger players nowadays, even they can't practice on their own. They need they need a PT, they need a coach, they need advice, they need this. And I'm thinking, well, I go back 30 years ago when we didn't have all the coaching in around Northern Ireland what we do at the minute, and I practiced for 3-4 hours on my own. Not an issue. Practice my ball, practice my one touch, my two touch, my finish, my different technique, and again that led me to want to be a striker.
So you were making yourself do that, like, for
scoring
hours,
goals.
yeah.
I practiced and practiced and practiced. I knew I didn't have the attributes in terms of size, physique. I wasn't overly quick, as Graham so mentioned on the podcast on the show last night for the Englands. I wasn't overly quick, so I had to be good at something. My finishing technique was probably as good as probably most, but I just lacked in a few other different areas to be real top level.
First touch for that goal is lovely.
First
touch, yeah. The football can be quite cruel, isn't it? And we had what do you call him, David Jeffrey on. He said he was at Man United, and basically the boss brought him and says, "You're not good enough."
Big Ron.
And said, in the back Northern Ireland, and I mean it can be fairly vicious,
Ruthless.
cruel, and you need that ruthless streak. You're a manager now, so do you see it from the other side? Do you have to be still ruthless? And
I think it probably in any walk of life, you need to have some sort of resolve, resolute about you. You need to have some sort of character. And again, listen, I had 9-10 clubs, and I was released from quite a few. I sat down with managers. I sat down with Roy Hodgson. Again, I signed for Fulham when Laurie Sanchez was the manager.
Right, yeah.
Laurie left after, I think it was about 5 months. It wasn't quite working out, and Roy Hodgson came in. So that summer before I signed for Sunderland, I sat down with Roy, and again, Roy was mild-mannered. He was pleasant. He was nice, but he had a ruthless edge. He basically just sat me down and says, "You're not going to play." He says, "You have 2 years left in your contract. You can do can do what you want with that." And I said, "No, I'll probably just stay." And then he says, "Right, we've just signed Bobby Zamora from West Ham for 6 or 7 million quid. We've signed Andy Johnson from Everton or Crystal Palace at the time. So that's going to limit." And I just went, okay, I'm still going to fight for my place here. And he says, "Right, okay." Basically, he was going around the houses before he basically just said, "You are not wanted here, and you're not needed here." So he says, Bobby's coming in. You're number 9 at the minute. He says, "Bobby wants number 9, so you're going to be 39. I said, "Right, that's it. And that's when you know." But again,
I'll take the hint.
I didn't take it the first time. I didn't take it the second time. But again, then when the number. But again, Roy was a gentleman, but he had to go around 2 or 3 different answers that for me, the IQ in footballers at times, instead of getting it first go.
But it's clear he was at that, and that's what he was going to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was pushing me out the door. He probably needed some sort of income, and when I signed for Sunderland at the time, he got a player in exchange, so he got Dixon Atuhu at the time, who was at Sunderland, Man City.
Right.
So he was basically pushing me out the door. He tried to do it the gentle way. Then he tried the second time, and then all of a sudden he says, "Oh, by the way, Bobby's coming in. Bobby wants number 9, and Bobby's getting number 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who's the best manager you played under then? Who did you?
There's probably a few. David Moyes, when I was at Preston, still continues to do a brilliant job
Got Everton being
at
turned
Everton.
around. Absolutely.
He won albeit the Conference League for West Ham, a club who haven't won a trophy for for 50 years. Sir Alex, obviously, we were kids. I would never ever claim to be a Man United player, but Sir Alex had this not only aura about him, but he had a fear factor. And again, I know obviously I've grown a little bit of a beard. If we had a basically 2-day stubble in training at the Cliff training ground, you used to actually hide from the manager, because if he seen some of the younger players with a little bit of stubble, you were in fear of being grilled by the manager, because he hated that sort of, I didn't say unprofessional, he hated that sort of scruffiness, he used to call it, in the younger players.
So you had to be clean shaved.
Clean shaved, or if you weren't clean shaved, you were hoping then that you weren't training with the first team, or you didn't bump into the manager, or he would have pulled you. He had that sort of awe about him. And again, most of the younger players knew that. But probably I had the privilege, again, Walter Smith, my last part of it. Walter had an aura of basically greatness about him. When he walked into a room and be at the canteen, the dressing room, the physio room, the gym, wherever he walked into, as soon as the door opened and he walked in and there was 2 footballers or 6 players in the round, automatically the place just went silence because he had that aura.
Right.
Nobody spoke when Walter walked in. I grew up again supporting Rangers, so to get the opportunity to work with such a legend at the time, and again I couldn't say anything bad. The Rangers situation didn't go the plan at the time. We ended up winning the league. Things went tits up after that, basically. And
Not your fault.
no, well, no, not most of it. But again, Walter just had that aura of, he was such a brilliant man, brilliant manager, brilliant man manager. Just walked on basically what.
And when did you decide that's the path for me as well to become a manager? Did you see the end of your career's coming? Do you see it? Do you just
I could see the end of my career coming, and people within the game are telling me maybe you got a couple of years, probably more than you should have. But I'd done my coaching badges with AFA. One thing that the AFA do really well at is the coaching side of it, and the coach education. Run by a brilliant man who overseen it for a number of years, Nigel Best. And again, as ex-players, you were sort of, I didn't say you were catapulted on, you were helped onto your B licence and you do your A, and then within the space of 5-6 years, you're doing your pro licence, and that's the UEFA that allows you to manage anywhere in Europe. But I never wanted to be a manager. I wanted to be a coach. I was helping Michael O'Neill at the time. I was coming back to do a development coach with Northern Ireland, Stephen Robinson at the time, before he left. And the opportunity arose. I met a Jack Grundy from Linfield at one of the Northern Ireland games I was watching. Now, I'd known Jack for years. He worked with the IFA and would never sort of sat down for a coffee. And he said to me that night, Warren Feeney had just left Linfield, and he says, do you fancy meeting for a coffee? And I was like, I don't really know what this is about. And then it changed from Costa and the Boucher Road or whatever else, and then I met at a solicitor's office in Belfast, and I was on the way down thinking, I wonder what's going on here. So I was offered the job 3-4 days later, and I always remember ringing my dad, who again supported Linfield, been to a lot of Linfield games over the years, and saying, Dad, I've been offered the Linfield job. And I was in a good position at Northern Ireland.
What do they feel about pigeons?
He says, how many pigeons are they going to give me? And he basically said, son, you're mad if you take that job.
Is that right?
And that was the words. And I echoed that when I do the AGM at the end of the season. My dad basically said, son, you're mad if you take that job. He says, you know what it's going to be like. And I sat and thought about it. Woke up the next day and basically says, I'm mad enough to take on this job.
Well,
wasn't ready for the managerial side at the size of Linfield at the time.
Yeah.
Linfield hadn't won a league for 4 years. Cliftonville and Crusaders had dominated, probably early 2000s. I think between them.
But we were 2012, 2013, 2014.
Great Tommy Breslin, and then Stephen Baxter, Crusaders. So Linfield hadn't, so there's a wee bit more pressure.
And they're slightly unforgiving fans, are they? Linfield, shall we say?
I'm sure you're sitting crowds when you try and sit in them. They're a tough crowd.
Yeah, they're a tough crowd.
They're a tough crowd again, but I can assure them every single day that I go to work, every single team that we pick, I don't do it out of spite to annoy them or have a bad result. We try and perform, we try and play brilliantly with the ball, we try and do everything that they want. Sometimes it doesn't always work like that, but tough crowd would be probably tough crowd would be an understatement.
Unforgiving.
Unforgiving at times.
Yeah. I mean, I love local football and stuff like that, and you're our big rivals when we won the Irish Cup finally after 45 years. Did I mention that? Sorry.
Do you know what?
You ever heard of a guy called Hale? Brilliant goal.
Yes, he scored a couple of good goals. Well, by all accounts, I was watching with my eyes closed when he scored. Certainly the third one. I think he run from Tate's Avenue.
Yes, he did.
Jumped over and broke through. Somebody was letting me know that, that's the cup final over. But it was a cup final we started so well, and I think we took the lead. We probably potentially should have been a couple up.
Should have been.
Cliftonville looked a wee bit on the back foot. Half time comes. The momentum of the game then changes. I think Ashford scores that poor header from our sort of point of view. And from then on, probably like yourself, Tim, the rest of my day is a blur. I'm sure the rest of your day after, I'm sure you had it.
But that's the thing about football, it's moments and it's tiny things, that goal against England, I mean, it's literally a second, and it's Stephen passing the ball in the right way, your first touch, bang. That, the third goal against, it'll live in our memory forever.
Well,
it's literally
the heel just running through.
Yeah.
Chris Johns, it was 119 minutes or 20 minutes. We were getting beat. Our goalkeepers at the top end of the pitch, and you just see running through the middle of the pitch. Now, as I say, you just sort of, you're sort of thinking, what's going on here? But I say, fantastic. The rivalry that Linfield Cliftonville have, and I don't know whether David talked about it when he was on here, it's actually very amicable considering, complete divides of, the communities, etc. and support. I enjoy going to Solitude. I won my first league title at Solitude on the final day.
All right.
And that's enough. That's another story.
When the well on things.
Yeah, when they brought in.
Past is a past, David.
Jared Little had left. I think he'd left to go to Sligo at the time.
Yeah.
And we were going into, we needed to beat Cliftonville, your other biggest rival. So it's probably a wee bit like me last year. Who's going to win the Premier League? Yeah. Man City or Liverpool? You're thinking, it's worst case scenario. It's either or.
Can both of them lose?
So on the last day of the season, it was either Crusaders going to win the league or Linfield going to win the league. And during the week, Skin had left then to go to Sligo. And there was a couple of days where I was sort of thinking, I wonder what's going to happen at Cliftonville here. And then all of a sudden they brought back Tommy Breslin for the last game of the season. And I was like, not Tommy. Tommy's an absolute legend. Totally. I had the privilege to be in his company on numerous times. And I just thought at the time, are Cliftonville wanting Linfield to win the league? Are they wanting Crusaders to win the league here? Where are they here?
Yeah. Where were you standing? Where do you stand on that?
That was an ecumenical matter. Crusaders or Linfield. Though I do a couple of gigs for Linfield, and you're right, the rivalry between Cliftonville and is large, but it's fairly. I know loads of Linfield fans, but any Linfield gig I do, that you say all you have to do is take the piss out of the Glentour.
Yes.
That is a rivalry.
I've seen you at a few of the gigs, and you've always been well appreciated.
Well appreciated.
Yes, absolutely. Even by the hardened supporters.
Yes.
The tough crowd that I can't please.
Yes.
You certainly please them too.
Yes, I think I turned up at one gig in a Cliftonville top as well. But yeah, the rivalry with Glentoran is kind of.
That's a different level.
I mean, if you can't beat them, you are.
Yes. No, we went through a spell last year.
That you can't beat them, apart from winning the league.
That we couldn't. Yeah, that we couldn't beat them. They beat us 3 times, twice in the cup, and whatever else. And Linfield, Glentoran, the rivalry is different.
Yes.
It's interesting, certainly when you're at the Oval and you've got the big shed and whatever else, and you hear some
choice words,
expletives.
Yes.
I get called choice words.
Yeah.
But again, part of the rivalry is that I understand the derbies where I think previous years they used to have the dugout on the far side.
Yes,
both dugouts.
they did. Yeah.
And then they managed then to bring it sort of back to the home end, which again, for me, going at my first time to the Oval, I'm sort of thinking, well, this is going to be an interesting game. This will be interesting to see how this 90 minutes is going to work out.
Do you ever take it personally, or do you just have to brush
really.
it off? Because some fans can
do
go
have
over
them on
the
a
top
chippy.
and,
Now, I have a chippy on a Friday night, most Fridays. That's part of my routine. The brilliant chippy and Bangor where, and Bangor is completely divided, I would imagine, with Linfield Glentoran. Now, you bump into the odd person who didn't expect you to be sitting in eating a chippy here, that's not good for you. And I'm sort of thinking, mate, seriously, you've been having too many chippies here over the years. And he's a Glen man, and there's a wee bit of banter, a wee bit of stick, and a wee bit. I don't mind if I'm on my own.
Yeah.
If it gets a wee bit nasty in terms of if I'm in and around with my 10-year-old daughter, and sometimes she would say to me, Dad, what did that man say to you? And I said, don't you worry about that man, you just keep going. So some of it can cross the line, probably like most things. I'm sure you're out and about. You guys are out and about. You are instantly recognisable.
We tend to get more of like, where's that? I get where's that?
You probably hear that all the
All
time.
that sort of stuff.
And you're thinking, as I said, I'm expecting you to be in uniform. Where's your uniform? So there's tongue in cheek, and then there's
I mean, as I say, like we get where's that and all that sort of stuff. Like I'm a granda now, but
I'm a granda too.
It's
I am.
I'm a granda.
Young
my,
thing
my,
like
my
you.
daughter, yes, a young thing like me. My
Congratulations.
daughter is a young boy who's 14 months old.
Oh, congratulations.
So, proudest granddad.
Oh, brilliant.
Whatever else.
Congratulations.
And I'm not even from the West Belfast area.
Oh.
Well, don't put that out. Or North Belfast.
But I suppose when people start coming up to you, it's always an edge to it, you know, because of the whole football rivalry thing. And
Northern Ireland people have
yes.
this basically honesty about them.
Yes.
It doesn't really matter
Yes.
if they're shouting it at you or they're this close to you.
Oh yeah.
They'll basically tell you what they feel.
Do you know what I get? You're not as fat as you are on the TV.
All right, yeah. Yeah, here, I get that too at times.
Honestly, like they're just being honest.
Yeah, no, I hear that too, or they didn't realise, turn around and say, put a few pounds on it. They have that, as I say, honesty about them where they don't mind if they're out there. I don't mind that.
I don't mind.
that.
I get a lot
as long as it can take a wee bit back.
Yes, well, that's it. I get a lot of football people talk
I'm
to me
sure you
about
do.
football, which is great. You
Yes.
know, I mean, very rarely it gets nasty, but you know, it's most of it is because I
it
love
keeps-
look at football and I think it's.
And you know your stuff, yes.
Well, I don't up to a point. Jimmy Mulgrew, is he still playing for you?
He is, aye.
Because I fucking did a testimonial for him
Yeah, you
about
did.
12 fucking years
He's,
ago.
he's,
and I
nearly,
did a
he's
te-
nearly due another testimony.
Seriously, and I mean, Jimmy
19
is
years.
Yeah,
20 years nearly
What a
at
player!
Linfield.
You know, like,
Jamie is
He's unbelievable.
an inspiring character in terms of his the way he performs, the way he goes
Yeah.
about it. Again with Jamie, he doesn't look in great condition in terms of the way he carries it. He gets so many free kicks. He gets kicked from pillar to post
Yeah.
most games. He gets flat in most games. He does a wee bit of maybe lip service himself at times, and he makes a few bad tackles. But he's an unbelievable character in the dressing room. Demands the highest standards. Demands the standards that I try and set as a manager, where your best teams, most successful teams, have some sort of
character
view,
like that, yeah.
some sort of view in the dressing room. And Jamie certainly leads by example like that. He doesn't let the boys have.
he's like our Joe Gormley, that sort of level
Joe,
of stuff, you know.
again,
but,
when Joe has this incredible. I tried to sign Joe, and Joe's
several
honestly-
occasions. Every year there's a rumour
probably
Joe's going
about
to
3
Linfield.
times. Even when he came back initially from Peterborough,
Yes.
I met Joe in the hotel. Well, there was talking maybe going to Crusaders at the time,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden Cliftonville come back in with a strong offer. He never ever talked about the offer that Linfield had made him. He always sort of says, Crusaders had offered me this. I'm sort of thinking, Joe, I understand. But yeah, I
Joe
met with
Gormley to Linfield, by the way, is a bit like Jim Allister to Sinn Féin. You know, that's just in case you're a alcoholic. Yeah. Joe's a
close
Cliftonville
enough.
man through and
Joe,
through.
yeah, he did say that, and he did say, but we had the initial sort of meet and greet, and then when we left, I thought, I don't think we have a chance of signing Joe, even though we were keen. And I think if Joe had come to Linfield, it would have been a hell of a statement at the time.
Well, he's on 296 goals, I think.
I think he is.
coming
His
to
goal
300.
scoring rate.
And
and
Jamie, what age is Jimmy now?
Jimmy's 39,
Because that's what
40.
I'm genuinely did this.
No, I know you did.
I did a thing. Hang on.
It was
Fucker's
2016.
still playing.
2016, we played Rangers.
And he's
And
still bloody good.
And he's still playing. And the majority of times when Jamie still plays, he still carries the can. He still wears his heart on his sleeve. He's not as quick and as mobile as he was, but he still has effects on game.
Aye, well, salute from me, even though I get to see the side of
I
him.
will do. Here, he's another one that gets a nice warm welcome of a friend up at Solitude.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Oh,
he
is that
calls
right?
him- I think he calls him Soda Hole or something along them lines. I don't know why Soda Hole.
Yeah, well, okay. Yeah, well, there's some abuse you get from the understanders. Or,
Yes.
that people don't. We had Carl Frampton in here a few weeks ago. Carl Frampton's a fan of yours.
Carl Frampton.
Carl
is
Frampton, and
absolute
you're
legend.
mentioned 3 times in his autobiography. And do you know his auntie taught Carl Frampton?
was at
David Healy's
school.
auntie taught.
My auntie Deborah was at the school up on somewhere down the Shore Road.
Yeah,
or
it's the Shore
opposite
Road he's from, yeah.
Tigers Bay or
Yeah.
whatever. Carl, again, I had the great privilege of going to watch Carl some of his fights as a player. You used to always sort of find out if he was fighting in Belfast or wherever he was fighting, and I used to always try and get either Titanic or the Odyssey. Unbelievable experience, the atmosphere. And what Carl did probably better than most people in this country is unite the country in terms of, you know, it's difficult at times, you know, you're either from one side and whatever else. Everybody knew what Carl was, but Carl had this understanding of he was fighting for basically everybody at the time. I know I got to know his wife as Christine, yeah. I wouldn't like to fight Christine now. I would rather fight Carl than Christine. I think I said that to Carl. And then Christine's mum, who again had the pleasure, some of the after parties and the fights and whatever else being in and around. And Carl achieved so much greatness. So for me to be mentioned in his book is obviously flattering.
Absolutely, yeah. But he was saying as well that if he hadn't been a boxer, he might have been a footballer.
Yeah, I've seen him try to play football.
He said he wasn't bad.
No, well, he says that. I've tried to invite him down, and again, he's weary of his deep Crusaders connection. And I've sort of said, Carl, it'd be good to have you in the round somewhere or training, whatever else. And he says, I don't know, I don't really want to sort of have an effect on my deep Crusaders. And I said, don't worry about it. The saying is, scratch a crew, find a blue anyway.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
don't worry about that. But a brilliant ambassador for Northern Ireland. Again, through tough times in Northern Ireland over the 40, 50 years, whatever else, sport in general, boxers.
Yeah, he's one of those ones you could not like, and he was...
unbelievable charisma about him.
Gracious in victory and magnanimous in defeat and all of that sort of stuff,
I listened to a bit when he lost, I think he lost to Josh Warren after the fight that he had at Windsor and whatever else, and he was so disappointed in his own performance, but he was so humble in defeat, which again sometimes says a lot about not only a great fighter or boxer, because they have to go in with a persona in the lead up to a fight that there's a lot of, again, unneeded lip service.
You hate losing, do you? Do you kick things when you lose? Do you?
I've tried to manage that over the years.
Are you a shouter in the dressing room, or are you calm? I
would try and use probably a motivator,
right?
A shouter sometimes. And there's times when...
You zen and focused, or you...
Oh, now and again. Sometimes you need a wee bit of that. You're playing away at Carrick or away at Seaview. Probably not as much... When you used to go to Crusaders and they had, the more physical team that they had, you knew if you turned up there on a Tuesday or Saturday and you weren't physically ready for a challenge, you were beat. Yeah. You were beat before you even stepped on the pitch. So there was a wee bit of psychology, a wee bit of sort of siege mentality that we used to try and use, and I think we've done that over the years pretty well. And again, I use that a lot for myself as a manager, where psychology, mindset, a little bit of mental toughness.
It's interesting because it's one of those things I always wonder. You get these teams that play absolutely brilliantly one week and then they're just completely garbage the next week.
That's us.
That's also time. Where is that in terms? Is it a mental thing, or is it?
Do you know what? Again, without being disrespectful to the league, the Irish league, if all the players were as good as you wanted them to be all the time, no disrespect, they wouldn't be playing in the league. They'd play in England or Scotland, right, okay. And you've seen so many brilliant players in the league in the last 10 years going further their career internationally or go to England, Scotland with good moves. So there is going to be that lack of sort of consistency in terms of performance. Right. Again, that's no disrespect. I love our league. Yeah. I lived in England for 20 years and I could not wait to get back here. Yeah. Not to manage, to basically go and see the league. I'd followed it from afar. And then to be back into it, managing, basically thrown in.
No, it's good crack. I want more people to come to. You should go. You don't go to enough Irish League matches. You should go to Irish League matches. It's also local, but also but there is a difference. Sorry, I'm going to bring up Shelburne, but you were beaten by Shelburne there, and there's people going, League of Ireland streets ahead of us, and more of them are full time and stuff like that. I mean, you didn't have two. You had two.
We again, Shelburne over the two legs. More recently, were better than us. Both legs. We were down to 10 men the first leg. Well, but the second game, and again, we lacked urgency. We lacked a little bit of quality, and Shelburne had that. And when you let a team with the quality they had, the boy Harry Wood and Coote who was playing for them, and they had Autobico through the middle with a wee bit of pace. These are all lads who have come back from they played in England and Scotland, so. The investment that Shelburne had made in the playing group, the budget in terms of both sets of clubs were different. But we went into the game sort of thinking we had a chance, and then throughout the game you're sort of thinking they're probably just better than us. Yeah. They're better conditioned. They play against probably better level of opposition when they play. Our league, no disrespect to it. Again, there's times when you go to play in a away ground here and there's hardly a seed of grass on the pitch, and it just becomes a brawl, it becomes a fight, and it becomes who's got that wee bit of an edge. Where any of the pitch, some of the stadiums down in Ireland aren't in great condition, but the majority of the time the pitches are, which then can create probably a better environment or an easier environment for some of the better players to go and play.
10 years manager of Linfield, you're going to...
10 years in October.
10 years
if I get
in
the
October
this year, if they don't have me out before that, it'll be 10 years.
What,
Anything's possible.
Yes. Well, how many trophies have you won in 10 years? David Jeffrey won how many? 197
David Jeffrey, honestly, again.
Coyle,
David Jeffrey and Roy Keane. So normally
you've won a whole lot now, haven't you?
I haven't won as anywhere near as as those two. Normally when you go into a club, tradition, you go into the big clubs, no matter where you go, there's always been a better manager, there's always been a better player, there's always been better teams. And coming into Linfield, I didn't have to, you don't have to search for people demanding success, because the success has already been there with people like David. David's won, 30 plus trophies, Roy Keane 30 plus even more, and what David won. And I know David speaks very highly of Roy. And again, I couldn't speak highly enough of David. He's still, he's in and around at the minute. He's always a wee bit of a mentor without being there at the minute. There's always little bits and pieces you can pick your brains on, because I would be mad not to. He's played for Linfield. I never had the pleasure or the privilege ever to play for Linfield in the league here. But to come in, next best thing for me, supporting Linfield growing up, was to manage him, and says my dad says, you mad if you take that. So he probably still thinks I'm mad. He doesn't miss too many games at the minute, to be fair to him. He's a wee bit older. He's a wee bit older. Even now, I think sometimes he turns up his wee walking stick, but he still manages to come, and he sits in and amongst some of the Linfield supporters. And sometimes, now I would ask him how well Linfield fans, and great, quiet, quiet, not too much said. And then I would speak to my mate who was with him, and he says, "What about that Linfield crowd tonight?" I said, "No, sure." Spoke to my dad, and he says, "No, they were great and they were pleasant." And I says, "Right, okay."
Who was your football hero before you?
My first initial one was Norman Whiteside. He scored. He scored in the FA Cup final. I was 6. And again, it was a rerun, and there was a video. Man United beat Everton in the 85 FA Cup final, where he slotted it in the corner, and I used to practice even though I wasn't left-footed. Norman Whiteside, because he was from Northern Ireland, he played for Man United. But probably my main one, who people always say you're in the back garden and you score, and you run away and you celebrate. I was Ali McCoist. Ali McCoist, outstanding talent. Absolute full of charisma. Even now he does.
He's good.
He's very good. He does so many. He does the radio. I think he does a lot of talk sport. He does the BT Sport. He does all the big Champions League, whatever else. So he was my first. Scored so many goals for Rangers. I had the privilege again to go on. I went on a Question Sport. Where he was team captain, and we sort of stayed in contact, and again he was part of the reason why I ended up at Rangers. I got a text message, "Do you want to come to Rangers?" I'm 30, near enough on my last legs. Do I want to come to Rangers? Absolutely. When?
Well,
and I think within about the space of a few hours I ended up at Ibrox for a year and a half. He was assistant manager under Walter, and then the year when everything went wrong at Rangers, Ali was the manager.
But it's a generational thing, because with you it was Geordie Best, wasn't it? Of course.
What's the age? Thanks for showing me. But Geordie Best, of course.
But did you not say that you were nearly a footballer?
When was I nearly a footballer? What are you talking about?
Did you not say that you wanted to be a footballer?
I would love to be a footballer. I just think about it. At that time, I mean, back then, it just wasn't regarded as, you just didn't do it. And also, unlike Tim's sons, I didn't insist on going to a school that played football. I went to Belfast High, and you played rugby there. You didn't play football.
Yeah. George Best was my hero, but again, he was a little bit older. Again, I met George once, and again, if you meet George once, that was enough. And honestly, I could not have watched the hand that he shook that day. I wouldn't have done, because he was my dad's hero, everybody's hero, and I didn't have the fortune the same as a player, as a younger.
I saw him once. I saw him do the flip over. Was it Gordon Banks?
When he nodded it out at Windsor.
And then they went, "No, it's disallowed."
Of course, he did give him a headpiece.
George did.
Here, give me a headpiece. Yes.
Right.
Yes, he was on give me a headpiece. Yeah.
Right.
I think the height of his career. David, it's been an absolute. That's an hour. I'm like, see, that was painless. What? Sorry, what?
Would you take? Because it's relevant. Would you ever be manager of Man United? Would you ever take that job?
At the minute?
Yeah.
Sounds like I need you.
No, I think Ruben at the minute will eventually get them playing some decent football. Would I manage Man United? Absolutely. Absolutely. I wouldn't manage Rangers.
No.
You know, that's just a multiple, you know, percentage improvement on managing Linfield, the size of. So managing Rangers, again, haven't played for them and understanding the demands. Would I manage Man United? Absolutely.
What about Northern Ireland?
Northern Ireland eventually.
Yeah.
Michael's
Would
on
you
a
like that?
50-year contract, I think. And, wherever, and I know Steve Davis is in the round work. There's enough when Michael does eventually, you know, maybe in 3-4 years, if he does step away as Northern Ireland, there's enough brilliant candidates in terms of Stephen Robinson, Grant McCann, Stephen Davis, Johnny Evans, myself, and Jim Magilton, who again play for Northern Ireland.
He's a very good manager. Very good manager. You should have a word.
That's not
with
what
him.
you told me when they were beat last week.
Shut up. David Healy, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for being on the Give My Head podcast. I wish you the best for the rest of the season, except when you're playing Cliftonville. Obviously, may your dad's pigeons always win.
Remind our friend up at Solitude.
Remind your friend that, yes, a coo, not...
Yeah, seagulls or crows or no. He doesn't
I will try and find him and tell him how to impersonate a pigeon.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for being on the Give My Head podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching and listening. Don't forget our live show is on Sunday the 12th of October. Get your tickets now underneath Glister. Give My Head podcast live in the Mandela Hall Sunday the 12th of October. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. David Healy.
Thank you guys.